everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Amber Rose, also known as the Religious Hippie. You can basically follow me on any social media platform, and today we're going to be talking about my bookshelf and the books that are on my bookshelf, because I have a lot of books. So this is basically going to be a mini book review of books I really love. So yeah, enjoy this mini book review.
But first, a word from our sponsor, The Little Catholic Box. The Little Catholic Box is a family-owned Catholic company that sends out quarterly subscription boxes to those who sign up. You can also purchase their items individually if you would like off of their online store. These items are quality and they support other Catholic businesses too. So don't miss out. You can use my link below in the description for 10% off your purchase today. The Little Catholic Box. Celebrate your faith in everything you do.
Starting off with our first book, this is Mary and Her Scapular Promise. This is an amazing book to learn more about the brown scapular. I have mine on, you can see the string there. So if you are interested in learning more about the brown scapular, I highly suggest this book for you because it gives you literally all the information you could possibly ever want about it. Now this book was originally printed in 1940, and so the preface is done by Archbishop Fulton Sheen when he was actually Monsignor Fulton Sheen, which kind of feels weird to say. So this is basically the description. Mr. Haffert has in a masterly way laid bare the solid foundations upon which this brown scapular devotion reposes. His case is so strikingly presented that to challenge this devotion is to challenge to some extent the tradition and authority of the Church. The scapular promise of Our Lady is, whosoever dies clothed in this shall never suffer eternal fire. This extraordinary gift of the scapular brings its greatest usefulness not only to the Carmelite family of Mary, but also to all the rest of the faithful who wish, affiliated to that family, to follow Mary with a special devotion. This is the most complete book on the subject we have seen. It gives many examples of the powerful protection one gets from the scapular, and that protection is in great need today. And this was printed in the 1940s. If they were in great need of it then, we are in more great need of it today. So yeah, highly suggest this book. You can get it off Amazon, and I'm linking all of these books below for you guys too. Don't worry, you don't have to go searching for them. I will link them for you, if I can find them. The next book we have is C.S. Lewis's The Screwtape Letters. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this already, but basically this is a satire book in the sense of a defense for Christianity. And honestly, C.S. Lewis is so on point in the fact that what he wrote about back when this book was first released, oh my gosh, when was this first released? I believe it was released in 1942? I don't know if that's accurate. Anyways, he is so strikingly on point, and what he puts in these books, like in the letters or whatever, which he claims he didn't write them, but whatever, is so relevant to what we're facing today, the spiritual battle. So basically, this book follows a demon called Screwtape, and he has a nephew named Wormwood, who is basically in like demon college or whatever. And Wormwood is trying to get this one man to fall away from Christianity, who is the enemy in this book, God, and come like to Satan's side, basically. And so through this book, God is referred to as the enemy, and Satan is referred to as like the good guy, and so to speak. But this book is so important to read because of the fact it literally tells you how Satan can get a hold of us so easily. Like, it doesn't even take very long, and it's so accurate. And honestly, I believe if C.S. Lewis had just a little bit more time, he truly would have converted to Catholicism. He was so close. And so many of his beliefs align with the Catholic Church. So I highly suggest this book. It's a really good book. Next up, we have A Catholic Home. This is a really good book if you want to live liturgically and you want an idea on some traditions you can do in your house. It's great if you're a family. It's great if you're just living on your own, or if you're just a couple who just got married, whatever your circumstances. It's just a really great book to start living liturgically. And so it gives you ideas of what to do. So we have Holy Saturday, and it tells you what the liturgical color is. It's Easter Vigil, it's a solemnity, how to celebrate at home, what the Catechism of the Catholic Church says. it just has a lot of great information. Also, say hi to Padre Pio. It just has a lot of great information on here about traditions and how things got started, what you can do in your own family to start these traditions. So I do really love this book. And that book is actually quite similar to this one, is A Catholic All Year. And I think Heather mentioned this one quite a few times, and that's the reason I bought it, from A Catholic Mom's Life, her YouTube channel. Go check her out if you haven't. And so this is basically the same idea, except I think it has a couple more ideas than that one. Like, they both have the same concept. Like, they live liturgically, how to implement these traditions into your life, different things you can do, stories, etc. about the liturgical day that you're on, especially like when it comes to Easter and Christmas and all those fun feast days. But each of them have a different approach to it and different traditions and different things you can do. So that's why I got both of them, because it gave me like extra ideas. So yeah, I highly suggest getting both of them if you want, but also you don't really need to get both of them. You could just get one. Next up is the Essential Catholic Survival Guide by Catholic Answers. You guys have seen this one on my channel since the beginning, basically. This one has gotten me through a lot of hard to talk about topics in Catholicism, and it's thick. It's a thick book. So I really do love this book because it gives you literally any answer to Catholicism you could ask for. If you have a question about purgatory, answered. If you have a question about the saints, answered. If you have a question about authority, answered. So it's a really wonderful book if you have questions about Catholicism, and you don't have to read it cover to cover. You could literally go to the index and just cherry pick. Let's say you want to talk about like who can and can't receive communion. You go to wherever, who can receive communion? Why is the Holy Eucharist the most important sacrament? How should a Catholic prepare for reception of communion? Like literally, if you're a Catholic or a non-Catholic, this book will help you. And honestly, we could all use a little help. So I love this book. The next book we have is Persuade ProLife. This one is by Trent Horn, and this is what kickstarted me on my pro-life journey when I came back into my faith. This book is wonderful. It tells you the arguments that pro-choice people will have, how to address them, how to get the argument back to a calm discussion about what a child really is, like what an unborn baby is. And it also gives you examples of conversations you can actually have between pro-choicers and yourself. So it gives you examples of how to approach these things. It backs it up by science. There's literally so much information in this book. It is amazing. So I highly suggest getting this book if you want to learn more about the pro-life stance on things and how to approach pro-choice people and change their hearts and their minds towards choosing life. It truly is very helpful. Next book I have is Preparation for Death by St. Alphonsus Liguori. I love St. Alphonsus Liguori. I have two of his books that I don't have tangibly, and that is How to Converse with God and Uniformity with God's Will. Those two books are only about 50 pages each, and they are phenomenal, okay? If you guys get any other books, please get those two. They are phenomenal. Also, Imitation of Christ, which I do not have on my bookshelf right now because I'm loaning it to a friend. Those three books, though, if you get no other books ever in your life, those three are the three you should get. But I do love St. Alphonsus Liguori, so I got his Preparation for Death book. This one has been trending for quite some time, but basically it gives you something to consider. So first point is that death comes quickly, so shortness of life. So that's your consideration, and then you have affections and prayers. So basically, after you read this section of consideration, then you go on and you pray the prayer that's after it, and then there's a second point, the lighted candle at death, and it kind of goes into the importance of death and why we really should take it so seriously. And so I absolutely love this book. I think everybody should read it. I have it bookmarked in a couple places, as you can see, because it's just so important to me that we realize, honestly, that this is a ship and it's not our home. It's carrying us home if we decide to stick with it and don't jump overboard, but it's really important to consider. So I highly suggest this book. The next book I suggest is The Loser Letters. This was a really, really good book, and it confused me at times. which I enjoy getting a little confused in certain books because if they're just too easy to read, I sometimes get bored with them. This one really kept me on my toes. So the basics of this book is that it's loosely based off of the C.S. Lewis Screwtape Letters. It's a satire book, so it's an argument for Christianity while being about atheism. So it's a comic tale of life, death, and atheism, and honestly, the ending is sad. But I'm not going to tell you guys that because you have to read it yourselves. So it's basically in the same sense as the Screwtape's letters are kind of written, but it's written by an atheistic woman writing to the head of the atheists, which are like Satan or whatever, and she's telling them about how great atheism is and why and stuff, but she ends up defending Christianity without meaning to. And I just think it's a hilariously wonderful book, and a lot of people should read it. I don't know if it's for everyone because I'm not sure if people are into satire books. You kind of have to be in the mood for it, but I really love this book. Next up, we have Purgatory and Heaven. I loved this book. It's a very small, thin book, and honestly, the writing is like huge. Like, it's pretty big writing. And basically, it walks you over what we believe when it comes to purgatory and heaven. The stillness of purgatory, what kind of pain there is in purgatory, prayers for the souls in purgatory, how we can help them. Prayers and sacrifices offered for the dead are acts of supplication to the mercy of God. Like, it's just a wonderful little book that gives us more information on purgatory and heaven. I believe they also have one on hell, but I wasn't brave enough to buy that one. But I do want to buy the book Dogma of Hell because I've heard that one is very, very good, and whether I want to scare myself or not really sure. But yeah, so I really do like this book as well. Next up is another book that I actually got from Heather, A Catholic Mom's Life, and this is Stories of the Saints, and I got this one for myself. I don't have kids. I know Heather has kids, and that's why she got this book. I don't have kids, but I'm a child of God, so it counts, right? So anyways, as a graphic designer, I absolutely love the illustrations in this book. I don't know if they're for everybody, if I'm being honest, but I personally absolutely love them. And here, let me see if I can show you an example like this. Like, what? I don't know. I absolutely love illustrations like this. Like, they're so simple and yet they're so not. I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, so there's stories of the saints in here. So you have the introduction, and then you have like Saint Cecilia. So like Saint Cecilia. Saint Ambrose is in here, which is another one of my, obviously my namesake, but also another one of my favorite illustrations. This is Saint Joan of Arc. So anyways, I just really love this book. Whether you are an adult like me and a child of God, or you are a child and a child of God, I highly suggest this book. I really do. I think it's really cool and the illustrations are fun, and I just love reading it for fun too. Okay, the next books I have are the Karen Trilogy. Technically there's another book in between these two called Rory or something. I didn't get that one because it wasn't as good as these two, but it was okay. But I really loved this book, this one specifically. So this was the first book. And it's about a girl who has cerebral palsy back during World War II. This is before cerebral palsy is really known. She's in a huge Catholic family. She gets her first communion. It's just beautiful to see, and it's based off a true story. Like, this is all true. Her mother wrote this story. Like, it's completely based on a true story. She was a real girl. There's a picture of her on Google somewhere, I forget. But she basically had cerebral palsy during the 1940s. And just the struggle of her family, like, it's all in here, and how she overcame those struggles with God. And it's just a beautiful story. It kind of reminded me of like Little House on the Prairie, but based more in like the 1940s. I don't know, there was something about the series that just really spoke to me, like the hardships of the family, that they had to struggle through things. And the fact that they had this girl and they didn't know what was wrong with her from the moment she was born. Like, she couldn't really move, and she went to tons of doctors, and I don't know, there's just something about that speaks to me. I really do love these books. It's a trilogy. Feel free to pick up the second one if you want. This is the first, this is the third. But I love these books. Next up, we have the AntiMary Exposed. You guys have seen me talk about this a while back. This is one of my favorite books. It basically talks about how the feminist movement is the anti-Mary movement, the anti-Our Lady movement, the anti-woman movement. The demonic influence on women today. In the late 60s, a small group of elite American women convinced an overwhelming majority of the country that destroying the most fundamental of relationships, that of mother and child, was necessary for women to have productive and happy lives. From the spoiling of this relationship followed the decay of the entire family, and almost overnight, our once pro-life culture became pro-lifestyle, embracing everything that felt good. 60 million abortions later, women aren't showing signs of health, happiness, and fulfillment. Increased numbers of divorce, depression, anxiety, and sexually transmitted diseases, and drug abuse all point to the reality that women aren't happier, just more medicated. Huge cultural shifts led to the rethinking of womanhood, but could there be more behind it than just cultural politics and rhetoric? Building off the scriptural foundations of the Antichrist, Carrie Gress makes an in-depth investigation into the idea of anti-Mary as a spirit, not an individual, that has plagued the West since the 60s. Misleading generations of women, this anti-Marian spirit has led to the toxic femininity that has destroyed the lives of countless men, women, and children. I love this book so much. I've read it 4 times, still don't get bored of it. Highly suggest it. Okay, next up we have Story of a Soul. I don't believe this is her entire biography. It might be, I don't know. I loved this book. It was hard to read for me to an extent because of the fact that, like, what she struggled with, I feel like a lot of us struggle with, St. Therese of Lisieux. But I got through it and I was like, wow, what a saint. You know, honestly, like, she knew her littleness, and through that, God made her a great saint. And so I just really love this biography. I think it's really sweet. I love seeing the lives of saints and how they lived and what they struggled with, and to know that they were human too. And just to know that they struggled as well. So I really love this book. I'm sure all of you guys have already read it. If not, I'd highly suggest it. It's really sweet. And I've already gone on longer than I should. So the last book is The Imitation of Mary. I already mentioned The Imitation of Christ. Absolutely love that book. It's one of my favorites. I've read it like a bazillion times. I've read it a lot. But there is also The Imitation of Mary, which I think is also very important. I haven't read it as much as I've read The Imitation of Christ, but there's still so much great information in here that I just feel like everyone should read this one too. It kind of goes through Mary's life, what she felt during Calvary, leading up to, it basically walks through her life and how she felt, and it gives us prayers, and it kind of gives us insight into that. And so I really love this book, and plus look at the cover. Like, it's so pretty. Anyways, that's basically a majority of books on my bookshelf. I have tons others, but we would be here forever. So I would love to hear what your guys' favorite books are in the comments below. If you've read any of the books I mentioned, please let me know and what you thought about them. I'd love to hear your ideas. I think we can learn from each other. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Talk to you guys in the next one. Bye!